In the deepest, darkest, muddiest part of the Whispering Woods lived a creature of legend. His name was Griselda, but everyone just called him the Slop Goblin. This dude was not just messy. No, he was the king of slop, the sultan of sludge, the undisputed champion of chaotic clutter. His home wasn't a cave, it was more like a compost heap with a door. Old banana peels hung from the ceiling like weird chandeliers. His favorite chair was just a pile of damp leaves and forgotten socks. He didn't walk, he sort of squelched, leaving a trail of mysterious goo wherever he went. This goblin was a walking, talking, squelching mess, and he totally rocked it. Now, Griselda wasn't messy on purpose, you see. It was just his nature, his vibe, his goblin-y essence. He loved the feel of mud between his toes and the lovely smell of week-old mushroom stew. He saw beauty in the things others called trash. A rusty can? That's a tiny drum. A tangled mess of yarn? A cozy nest for a spider buddy? To him, the world was a giant, glorious, messy playground, and he was just having the time of his life. He'd hum little tunes as he sorted through his piles of treasures, finding joy in a particularly squishy tomato or a perfectly mossy rock. He was living his best, sloppiest life. The other creatures in the woods, however, did not share his artistic vision. They saw his slimy trails and heard his squelchy footsteps, and they got seriously spooked. The squirrels would chatter warnings from the treetops. The Slop Goblin comes. Hide your nuts. Hide your perfectly clean acorns. The bunnies would hop away in a panic, their little white tails disappearing into the bushes. They told stories about him, scary stories whispered around campfires. They said he was a monster, a fiend, a villain made of muck and malice. They couldn't imagine anyone being that messy unless they were pure 100% evil. This whole evil monster reputation was a total bummer for Griselda. He'd try to say hi, maybe offer a neighbor a really nice, slimy frog he'd found, but they would just scream and run away. He once tried to return a lost baby bird to its nest, but the mama bird dive-bombed him, thinking he was trying to eat her kid. Griselda would just shrug his goopy shoulders and go back to his slop pile, feeling a little lonely. He didn't get it. Why was everyone so scared? He was just a goblin who liked mud. Was that so wrong? He just wanted a friend to share his mud pies with. The whispers about the Slop Goblin got crazier and crazier. The townsfolk of nearby Puddlebrook started blaming him for everything. Did your laundry get splashed with mud? The Slop Goblin did it. Did a pie go missing from a windowsill? Definitely the Slop Goblin. He became the ultimate scapegoat, the go-to ghoul for every minor inconvenience. Mayor Reginald Pompous, a man whose moustache was always perfectly waxed, declared the Slop Goblin a menace to cleanliness and a threat to our spotless society. He offered a reward for his capture, a lifetime supply of soap. This, of course, was the last thing Griselda would ever want. One day, a priceless royal jewel, the glimmering teardrop of Puddlebrook, went missing from the mayor's mansion. Panic, chaos. Accusations flew faster than startled pigeons. And who did they blame? You guessed it. Only a creature of filth and darkness would steal something so pure and beautiful. The mayor boomed to the terrified crowd. He described a horrifying scene of a slimy monster sneaking through the window, leaving a trail of muck and despair. The townspeople grabbed their pitchforks and mops, ready to march on the Whispering Woods and bring the fiend to justice. They were totally convinced he was a jewel-hoarding monster. Of course, Griselda knew nothing about this. He was busy trying to teach a family of frogs how to sing in harmony, a project that mostly involved a lot of croaking and splashing. He was completely unaware that he had become public enemy number one. He was just a simple goblin, living his sloppy dream, while a whole town was preparing to invade his home. The misunderstanding had reached a whole new level of insanity. It was like a comedy of errors, but with more mud and way more potential for pitchfork-related accidents. The stage was set for a showdown that nobody, especially Griselda, was ready for. The truth was so much simpler, yet so much harder for anyone to believe. Griselda wasn't a thief. He was an artist, a collector of the discarded, a connoisseur of the overlooked. He wouldn't know a priceless jewel from a shiny bottle cap, and frankly, he'd probably find the bottle cap way more interesting. He valued things for their texture, their smell, their squish factor. A cold, hard diamond? Boring. A nice, squishy, overripe berry? Now that's treasure. The world saw a monster, but beneath the layers of grime and goo was just a dude with a very different, very grubby set of priorities. While the town was freaking out, Griselda was on an adventure of his own. He wasn't looking for jewels. He was on a quest for something far more valuable, the legendary glimmering gourd. This wasn't just any gourd, oh no, it was said to grow only in the smelliest, swampiest, most treacherous bog in the land, the bog of eternal stench, and it was rumoured to make the most incredible, earth-shakingly sloshy soup in the entire world. For a slop goblin, this was like finding the Holy Grail, but, way more delicious and soupy. He packed his favourite ladle and set off with a happy squelch in his step. His journey was wild and weird. He navigated through fields of spiky snapper vines by covering himself in slippery algae and just sliding right through them. He crossed the burping river by befriending a giant gas-powered turtle who gave him a lift. At one point, he got stuck in a giant spider web, but instead of fighting, he just started playing the strands like a harp. The spider was so impressed with his musical talent that she cut him loose and even gave him a little silk pouch for his snacks. Every challenge was just another chance for Griselda to be his weird, wonderful, messy self. He finally reached the bog of eternal stench. The smell was epic. It was a masterpiece of foul odours, a symphony of stink that would make a normal person's nose fall right off. But to Griselda, it smelled like home. It smelled like victory. And there, in the middle of the bog, sitting on a pedestal of moss, was the glimmering gourd. It was magnificent. It glowed with a faint orange light and was covered in the most beautiful bumpy warts he had ever seen. He carefully picked it up, cradling it in his arms like a precious baby, a very lumpy, glowing baby. As he held the glimmering gourd, he noticed something strange. A small, sad chirping sound was coming from inside it. Very, very carefully, he used his sharpest fingernail to carve a little window in the gourd's side. Peeking inside, he didn't find seeds or pulp. He found a tiny, glowing bird with feathers that shimmered like a rainbow. The poor little thing was trapped. It must have flown in when it was just a tiny hole and gotten stuck as the gourd grew around it. Griselda knew what he had to do. The soup would have to wait. This little guy needed his help. Griselda journeyed back toward his home, the glowing gourd bird cage held gently in his arms. Just as he reached the edge of the woods, he ran smack into the angry mob from Puddlebrook. "There he is, the monster, and he has the glimmering teardrop!" yelled Mayor Pompous, pointing his shiny cane at the glowing gourd. The crowd gasped. They saw the glow and their brains just filled in the rest. They didn't see a trapped bird. They saw a goblin holding their stolen treasure. They raised their mops and pitchforks, ready to charge at the poor, confused goblin. It was the ultimate face-off. But before they could take a step, a new character entered the scene. A sneaky, fast-moving magpie with a very shiny necklace swooped down from a tree. And what was that necklace made of? You guessed it, the glimmering teardrop. The real thief had been a bird all along, attracted to the shiny object. The magpie, startled by the crowd, dropped the jewel right at the mayor's feet. Everyone stopped. They looked at the jewel on the ground. Then they looked at the glowing thing in Griselda's hands. It was a gourd, a very lumpy, glowing gourd. The whole town went silent. Suddenly, the little bird inside the gourd chirped loudly. Griselda, ignoring everyone, carefully finished carving a bigger opening and gently tipped the gourd. The little glowing bird hopped out, shook its rainbow feathers, and flew a happy circle around Griselda's head before soaring up into the sky. The townspeople watched, their mouths wide open. They hadn't seen a monster stealing a jewel. They had seen a kind, gentle creature rescuing a trapped animal. The menace to cleanliness was actually a hero, a sloppy, sloshy, muddy hero. From that day on, everything changed. The town of Puddlebrook learned a very important lesson. You can't judge a goblin by his slop. Mayor Pompous issued a formal apology, and they even built a statue of Griselda in the town square, though they made sure to put a protective tarp under it. Griselda was finally understood. He still lived in his messy home, and he was still the undisputed king of sludge, but now he had friends. The kids would visit him, bringing him cool junk they found, and he'd show them the best mud puddles. He was still the slop goblin, but now everyone knew he was the good slop goblin.